Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we're going to be taking a look at a Pokemon card which is weirdly expensive. We did this a little while ago. We looked at the promo Plasma Landorus, and we talked about why it's so weird and why it's so expensive and why it's so cool and all of that. And a bunch of people said, you know what, we'll see, I wouldn't mind a couple more of these videos. We can make this into a little bit of a series, and I thought, right, get my thinking cap on. Well, for some reason I was at work today and I remembered about the Toxicroak G. Now, very important to note, there were two Toxicroak Gs. There was the one that just came around ordinarily in Platinum. It is not a great card. It is not expensive. You can easily pick it up for less than $1. No, we're not worried about that one. We are worried about the fighting type rather than the psychic type, the promo rather than the set. We are worried about the one that came with a book. Let me explain, shall we? So if we have a little bit of a look at TCG Player, which is just a site that people use to value cards and sell cards, etc., you're going to be paying somewhere in the region of $20 for this card. $20 for a random promo from years ago. Okay. If we go on to Troll and Toad, there is actually one available for $13, but then the only other one up there is $40. This is a very expensive random holo promo. And if we look at other holo promos from the era, we end up with like the Magnezone that came with a little poster pack that is worth like $1 plus shipping. So why is Toxicroak so much better? Well, there's a number of reasons. One of the reasons was it was actually quite a difficult card to get hold of. You see, it was only released as part of the Platinum Player's Guide. So what you essentially did was you would buy the Platinum Player's Guide, which is literally a book, and then you would get the Toxicroak G promo along with the book. Now, as the card got better and better, and we'll talk about that in a moment, people went out and started searching for these players' guides, searching for these books, purely because they wanted the Toxicroak. You were getting really high-level players, and the book wasn't some giant strategy guide that would get you winning regionals. It was just a nice little book about the Platinum expansion. What was different was the promo. So you would get these really high-level, serious, grinding for worlds players who would go out and buy the Platinum Players Guide, which was really aimed more at newer players, just to go and get this promo. So what does the card actually do, and why was the card so good? Well, it was a fighting type SP Pokemon, more on that in a moment. And it had a Poker Power. Once during your turn, if Toxicroak G is your active Pokemon, you may flip a coin. If heads, you return Toxicroak G and all cards attached to it to your hand. This power cannot be used if Toxicroak G is affected by a special condition. Cool. So it had a jump away kind of attack, a leap away attack. If it was in the active, you could just get rid of it. So essentially you used it, and then if it didn't get KO straight away, you could just get rid of it. And what was really cool is Toxicroak and all cards attached to it went into your hand. Now, Poison Revenge for 1 Psychic, 1 Colorless Energy does 20 damage base, and if any of your Pokemon were knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack during his or her last turn, you did 20 damage plus 40 more plus poison. So 60 damage plus poison then. Now this was incredibly relevant because there were a bunch of fighting weak Pokemon around at the time. Probably the most prevalent, the most important of them was Luxray Level X, who in the SP format really was central to the format. And you'll notice 110 HP and a ×2 weakness to fighting. Now that wasn't a given at the time. Not every Pokemon was actually ×2 weak, although SP Pokemon would just play Lucario GL, so that any weakness that wasn't ×2 would become ×2. So you could get an instant one-hit KO on Luxray GL level X. That was quite nice. But we did also see a fair helping of Regigigas at the time. Now, it was really based all around the Regigigas level X, which really was a deck in and of itself, which I'm fairly sure I've made a video about. I'll pop a link to that one in the description. Now, Regigigas level X was, let's just say, a bit of a beefier boy. Regigigas level X came in at 150 HP, so even with the ×2 weakness and the poison, you wouldn't quite get a KO. You would be sitting there doing 130, 60, double for the weakness is 120, add the poison goes up to 130. And the thing was that Regigigas level X had the, poker power sacrifice that allowed you to sacrifice a Pokemon and remove 8 damage counters from Regigigas. But that actually couldn't be used if you were affected by a special condition like poison, so even though you didn't get the one-hit KO against it instantaneously, there was still a lot that you could do here to try and hurt Regigigas. And let's not forget, right, Regigigas level X doesn't start as level X. Generally, you would play the Drag-Off promo Regigigas, and a lot of people did like the one from Legends Awakened, both of which had 100 HP, so would be very easily KO'd by this. And what you had then was just a really nice fighting SP Pokemon. Now, you did have to have a Pokemon KO by damage during your opponent's previous turn, and there were odd ways around it. So Gengar from Stormfront was quite big at the time, and the Gengar from Stormfront dropped damage counters, so if they were able to drop damage counters and get a KO, or get a KO using a super annoying ability Fainting Spell, Poker Power as it was back then, i.e. when you knock out Gengar, flip a coin, if heads, you're also knocked out. That's kind of annoying. Or your opponent flips, and if they flip heads, your Pokemon's also knocked out. But you get what I mean here. The point is, there were a few ways around it, but generally the KO would happen. And the thing is that this was an SP Pokemon, and being an SP Pokemon is huge, because you had a whole bunch of extra tricks. So you had Cyrus's Conspiracy. And Cyrus's Conspiracy was a supporter card, and you would chain it. So you could search for a basic energy, a supporter card, and a trainer that had Team Galactic's invention in its name. So generally you would search for Cyrus and a Team Galactic's trainer and a basic energy. So you could grab the psychic energy, but you could also grab energy gain. And energy gain, you attached it to one of your SP Pokemon. You'll notice a Krogunk in the artwork there, nice bit of foreshadowing. And their attacks cost 1 colourless less. And we're not talking like counter gain, where if you're behind on prizes, or Karate Belt, where if you're behind on prizes, no, just reduces the attack cost, but only for SP Pokemon. They really were overpowered. In fact, I've done a video about SP Pokemon, I'll link it in the description, if I remember, which I hopefully should. So now you can use Cyrus to go ahead and search for the basic Psychic and the energy gain, or if you didn't need the energy gain but you needed to find a Pokemon, you could go for a bit of SP Radar here, which was much easier to actually search it out. And you could drop it in one turn. You could drop it as a really nice surprise as a revenge KO'er, which is very much what the goal here was. But the thing was, because you had energy gain and because you had Cyrus, you would actually want a whole bunch of different types of Pokemon in your deck. It was much easier to achieve with this than it actually was in pretty much any other deck. And in terms of fighting type SP Pokemon, there really weren't many that saw a lot of play. Lucario GL did, but that was very much for the Pokebody, passive ability, than it was for any attack. And we didn't have something like Landorus that we had for Plasma decks. So all of a sudden, Toxicroak became by far the best option for a fighting Pokemon in an SP deck, in a format where, even if nothing else, you were taking out Luxray that was absolutely everywhere. And all of a sudden, Toxicroak became great. Now, the good news is it was very much a tech. It was generally a one-off in SP decks. You wouldn't usually play multiple of them because you could use Aaron's Collection to recover your SP Pokemon fairly easily. So you never needed to worry too much about it. Aaron's Collection was a phenomenal supporter card. Search your discard pile for up to 2 in any combination of Pokemon SP and Basic Energy and put them into your hand, not the deck, into your hand. So you didn't need to really play more than one of these. But an awful lot of SP decks started playing it as a one-off. And SP decks were everywhere. They saw a huge amount of play. So now all of a sudden you've got this perfect storm of a really good playable card that goes into a deck that a lot of people are playing that is extremely difficult to get hold of. I mean, I was playing Pokemon Around at the time, right? And essentially what happened was this. It came into stock, it went out of stock. It came into stock, it went out of stock. And LGSs were getting this in, they just couldn't keep it in stock. And that led to, frankly, the very high price. A quick note on something we mentioned earlier. Remember that the Poker Power lets you pop it into your hand, including all cards attached to it. So you could actually pop an energy gain on, attack with it, and if it survived, use the ability, if you flip ahead, to pop it back into your hand, including the energy gain. And the fact that it used a Psychic Energy was really nice because everyone played Crobat G at the time. Crobat G was phenomenal for the Poker Power Flashbite that dropped the damage counter. But if you're playing Psychic Energy, it meant you could use Toxic Fang, whereby you poison a Pokemon and put 2 damage counters on them between turns instead of 1. So it did open up that option as well. But with Cyrus, you could literally get away with playing 1 Psychic Energy and 1 copy of this. It was a really good card, it was really scarce, and the thing is, even though it's long rotated out of the format, it's still a good card for people that want to play old formats, and that is becoming increasingly popular. And it's still a fairly rare promo that was difficult to get and sold out everywhere. And that is why this Toxicroak was so good and so expensive. But at this stage, I'd like to know your memories of it. I'd like to know if you ever played with this card, if you ever played against it, if you went and bought one of the books to get one. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of games that don't even have any Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.